Erev Tov, good evening. Welcome. We are going to begin this evening with a beautiful piece, an ancient prayer written by Rabbi Moses ben Maimon in the 12th century, set to music in many different ways. This version by Abby Strauss. You can find the words in the supplement. It's sort of a meditation on belief and what it means, the struggle, the effort, and how we define it. Please join us.
אני מאמין באמונה
Page 6 in the prayer book. What an extraordinary gift it is. What a blessing. What a miracle. To have been raised by imperfect parents who did their very best. To share our life with a partner no more flawed than we are. to count as a friend, one who understands and accepts us most of the time. How brave, how hard it is to be good enough in our ties to one another, to give even when we're exhausted, to love faithfully, to receive with grace the love imperfectly offered to us. Can this night set us free from the tyranny of expectations? Can this night release us from fantasies impossible to fulfill? We resolve this night to embrace the practice of forgiveness, to forgive others who fail to be all we hoped they would be, to forgive ourselves when we fall short of what others hoped we would be. We declare this night that we will cherish goodness wherever it is found and open ourselves to the gifts that are before us.
May there someday be sunshine. May there someday be happiness. May there someday be love. May there someday be peace. I believe in the sun, even when it's not shining. And I believe in love, even when there's no one there. And I believe in God, even when He is silent. I believe with perfect faith. אני מאמין באמונה שלמה. אני מאמינה באמונה שלמה. May there someday be sunshine. May there someday be happiness. May there someday be love. May there someday be peace. Ve'imeru amen.
And it's my pleasure to call up Natalie Hausman-Weiss to light the Shabbat and the Yom Tov candles on page 9.
The human spirit is the lamp of God, searching out what lies within us, guided by the flame of conscience. On this sacred night, we search for truth. Shine your light upon us as we strive to serve you. May we find safety in your faithful love. We light the flame of healing and forgiveness. On this atonement night, we give thanks for love. Another one.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lechadlik ner shel Shabbat leYom Tov. Page 16.
Sorat Chovot Gudyantiv.
Hold on. I'd like to invite up some people to the bima. If your name is called, would you please, and you're here, would you please come up to the bima? Marion Bell, Karen Buchwald, Jay and Rosie Goldberg, Kelly Jones, Rachel Kasoy, Andy Kupferberg, David Schwartz, rather, and I think Rachel's out. Sandy Lusky, Jennifer Minio, Ann Pinchak, Carol Pock, Joan Reichstein, Deborah Sofer, and Eileen Weissman. And I know these folks aren't here, but are invited up anyway. Kathy Selig, Duffy Lieber, Ginny and Charles Levenbach, Myrna and Len Kaplan, and Ronnie and Donald Hess. The people whose names I just called are donors to our Simchat Torah project, Torah cover project. And some of you may have read the emails we sent out. So an organization called Mizrahi UK, which is a Jewish organization in the United Kingdom, came up with the idea of creating special, brand new Torah covers that each would represent and stand for, so to speak, one of the hundreds and hundreds of Israelis who were killed on October 7th. Each Torah cover will look like this. Actually, I'll show it to y'all first. The front of the Torah cover will look like this, and it says, eight Sfod ve'et Rekod, a time to mourn and a time to dance. And on the back of each Torah cover, there'll be the name of an individual who was killed on October 7th, dedicated to their life. So they're eventually going to make as many as 1,600 of these Torah covers, and that's it. So far, they've shipped out almost 700 worldwide. Unfortunately, because of the war, all non-critical shipping was held in Israel. So our Torah cover is somewhere between New York and here at the moment, but we weren't able to arrange to have it here. So I wanted to invite up these folks to say thank you for your support, for your recognition of this important cause, and for the continual ways in which we as a community, local, national, and international, will seek to once again never forget. I'd like now to also invite up our leadership team, who will be with us up here as we begin B'Shiva Shel Mala, which is on page 16. So if you are a leadership team member, please head up here. Or Zarua Lat Tzadik Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha, light is sown for the righteous, radiance and joy for the pure of heart. Please rise. And please know that let's go ahead. We're going to be standing for an extended period of time. If you are comfortable standing, please do so. If not, please feel free to take a seat.
B'Shiva Shel Mala U'V'Shiva Shel Mata B'Shiva Shel Mala U'V'Shiva Shel Mata Shiva Shalmala, Vishiva Shalmata, Adad Hamakom, Ve'adad Hakahal, Adad Hamakom, Ve'adad Hakahal, Anu mitpalelim la'avarat ro'ah hagzirah. Anu mitpalelim la'avarat ro'ah hagzirah.
With one voice, assembled sages, past and present, declare, all may pray as one on this night of repentance. Let none be excluded from our community of prayer. With one voice, God and congregation proclaim, all may pray as one on this day of return. Let all find a place in this sacred assembly. We continue on page 18.
Kol Nidre ve'yasarei v'charamei v'konamei v'chinuyei v'kinusei u'shavut. Din darna ishtabana ura acharimna Veda sarna nafshatana Miyom Kippurim ze ad Yom Kippurim haba Aleinu Latova Kol Hon Lacharat Naveon Kol Hon Yehon Sharan Shvikin Shvitin Betelin Umvutalin La Shririn Vela Kayamin Nidrana La Nidre Ve'esara nala esare ushevuatana la shivot.
All vows, resolves, and commitments, vows of abstinence and terms of obligation, sworn promises and oaths of dedication, that we promise and swear to God and take upon ourselves from this day of atonement until next day of atonement, may it find us well. We regret them, and for all of them we repent. Let all of them be discarded and forgiven, abolished and undone. They are not valid and they are not binding. Our vows shall not be vows, our resolves shall not be resolves, and our oaths, they shall not be oaths.
Do you want to pass it? page 20. V'nislach l'chol adat b'nei Yisrael, v'lager agar b'tocham ki l'chol ha'am b'shkaga. All shall be forgiven, the entire community of Israel and the stranger who lives in their midst, for all have gone astray in error. Slachna la'avon ha'am hazeh, kegod el chastecha. K'chasher nasata la'am hazeh mimitzrayim v'ad hena. Moses prayed to God, as you have been faithful to this people ever since Egypt, please forgive their failings now in keeping with your boundless love. Hasham ne'emar, Vayomer Adonai, salachti kidvarecha. And God responded, I forgive as you have asked.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu Lazman hazeh.
In your supplement, Am I Awake?
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared?
Page 28, we continue with the Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
love can be found in your service supplement.
And you shall love Adonai, your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all of your might. And all these words which I command you on this day shall be in your heart, shall be in your heart. And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and you shall speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, and when you rise up, and when you lie down, and when you lie down. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they will be for frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates, and upon your gates, that you may remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
Page 43.
The peace of wild things. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars, waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world, and I am free. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. Blessed One, you spread over us a canopy of peace, a shelter of shalom over all Israel, your people, and over Jerusalem. We continue on page 40 with Mi Chamocha.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nidar b'kodesh, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nidar b'kodesh. Norati lot osef eleh, norati lot osef eleh, Adonai, Adonai imlach le'olam va'ed. Mi chamacha ba'elim
Betsy Kaddish can be found on page 45. Yitkada v'yitkada shmei Rabbah, v'yamad divrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon, u'b'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, bagala, bagala, u'vizman kariv, v'yimeru, Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevorach, leolam leolmei hamaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitroman, v'yitnasei, v'yitchadar, v'yitchaleh, v'yitchalal, Shmei d'Kudisha b'richu, leila uleila mimkol birchata, v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran bialma, v'yimeru, amen.
As has become our custom with this new prayer book, we have the option of chanting in the Gvurot, which is in a couple of prayers from now, Mechayei HaMeitim, instead of Mechayei HaKol. Mechayei HaMeitim means who gives life to the dead. Mechayei HaKol means who gives life to all. The latter version of it became the choice of the Reform movement. But with the new prayer book, we've been given this option where we could choose one or the other. I encourage us during the High Holy Days to daven with the words Mechayei HaMeitim, the traditional words. And these words, which literally mean who brings life to the dead, are meant to be words that aren't just meant to be understood literally, but in terms of, metaphorically, what it means to sort of wake up to the world, or wake up to ourselves, or wake up in response to the shofar when it comes to how we wish to live our lives. There's so many different ways we can understand and imagine this word. But what I'm thinking about particularly tonight is the miracle of the state of Israel. And specifically, I was thinking about the book of Ezekiel. There's a verse in the book of Ezekiel that it's called the dry bones. And God says to the prophet Ezekiel, there will come a day when these dry bones will come, they will come to life. And that was describing the state, the people of Israel. That never fear, no matter how dark it is, there will come a day when it will come alive. And it did. And it did, and it does. And in the midst of all the difficulties, in the midst of all the challenges, in the midst of all the sorrow and the distress, we have to remember the miracle that Israel is, and that literally it was brought back to life. So I invite you to say those words in the Gvurot, Mechayei HaMeitim. We continue on the supplement for Adonai Sefatai, and then we'll turn to page 48. Would you all please rise?
You are blessed and you are holy. You are blessed and you are praised. You are blessed and you are faithful to the ones who praise your name. You are kind and you are healing. You are cleansing of my soul. You are loved and pure and gracious. You are real and make me whole. Adonai Sfatai Tiftach Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha. Open my lips for your praises, they'll show through your graces. Open up my lips, open up my lips. You are wise and you are sparing. You are merciful and clear. You are utter perfection, no more wrong directions. I'm loved and I am here. Adonai Satai Tiftach Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha. Open my lips for
Page 48. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Hastelvot V'Imahot, Umevi Gula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Yahava.
Zochreinu lechaim, melech havetz b'chaim, v'chotveinu b'sefer chachaim, lema'ancha Elohim chaim.
Zer umoshia umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham vezrat Sarah. Atah gibor leolam Adonai, Michaye metim atarav lechoshia, morid hatal. Michalkel chayim bechesed, Michaye metim berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar. Micha mocha bal givurot, Umido melach, Melech memid umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua. Micha mocha el harachamim, Zocher yitzurav lechayim berachamim, V'ne'eman atah lechachayot metim. Baruch atah Adonai, Michaye hametim. And we continue silently up to page 60. Page 81 is Yehiyu L'Ratzon.
Yehiyu
Yehiyu
l'ratzon, im refi ve'egyon libi lefanecha. Adonai, Zuri,
Years ago, when I was visiting Jewish patients up in the medical center on a fairly regular basis, I was visiting with an older woman, and one day the nurses called me and said that she had been moved to hospice and she would like to see me. So I went immediately to her room, and I came in and I pulled a chair up to the bed thinking we were about to have a very serious conversation. And she opened her eyes and saw me and smiled. And she pulled me in, and she pulled a piece of paper out of her, she must have been hiding it under the covers, and she handed it to me, and it had a name and a phone number on it. And she said, "This is my nephew's number. I want a wedding before I die." So yes, that was an all-time low of my dating life, that dying patients were actually trying to set me up with their nephews. Things got a little better, but she was very good at trying to find some joy. And actually, I've been thinking a lot about her at this time of year, because I actually think that there is a link between this kind of joy and death. Bear with me for a minute. If I were to ask you, what's the most joyous Jewish holiday, what would you say? Would you say Hanukkah? What was that? Simchas Torah, that's a very good guess. What about Passover? That's a joyous one, right? Oh, you're laughing, you just don't like the length of the Seder, but it's a happy holiday, right? What about Purim? Little get to get drunk and dress up. What's not fun about that, right? That must be the most Jewish holiday, but no, it is not. Actually, what the rabbis say, the most Jewish holiday, the most joyous Jewish holiday is Yom Kippur. Crazy, right? But if you guessed Purim, you actually were close, because both Purim and Yom Kippur celebrate cheating death. Haman was about to pull the trigger, about to kill all the Jews in Persia, but instead he finds himself swinging from the gallows. And on Yom Kippur, after praying and fasting and pleading with God to be written into the book of life, just as the gates are closing, we celebrate the fact that right now, in this moment, we are alive. The Mishnah explicitly states that Yom Kippur and Sukkot are the two most joyous holidays in the Jewish calendar. Now, Sukkot makes sense, camping out under the stars, eating good food, decorating a three-sided booth, but Yom Kippur, we're fasting, we're beating our chests, we're sitting in synagogue all day. It seems counterintuitive. But the rabbis say that Yom Kippur is in fact the most joyous holiday because on Yom Kippur, we are forced to confront our own mortality. And in so doing, we recognize that our lives are finite. We realize that life is precious, and we feel joy. In Hebrew, the word for joy is simcha. But the word simcha is not what we normally think of as joy or happiness. It's more nuanced than that. Simcha is not a fleeting moment of joy you might feel like when the Astros win, or when we finally experience weather that's below 90 degrees. The reason is that joy and happiness and pleasure are all states of mind and emotions. They belong to the individual, and we can feel them alone. Simcha, though, is not private. It is happiness, but it is happiness that is shared. Simcha is a social state, so there is no such thing as feeling simcha alone. Simcha is a deep, soulful, uplifting connection with others. It is a joy that is both inspired by and expressed with other people, so that when we create a simcha, we are effectively recognizing something that is life-affirming. A simcha is when we gather together in an authentic and loving way with others to celebrate life. And the joy we feel does not come from a heavenly promise of an afterworld. It's actually quite the opposite. A simcha is grounded in the reality of this world. A wedding, the birth of a child, the fact that we made it through another year until the next. There's a lot of sorrow in Jewish history, to be sure, but there's also tremendous joy because we create that joy ourselves. We are commanded to. When I teach my students about the Pale of Settlement, that swath of land in Eastern Europe where 80% of the world's Jewish population lived before World War II, we discuss the extreme poverty and the violent pogroms, which led to 2.5 million Jews immigrating from this region between 1880 and 1920. But we also talk about the rich Jewish life that flourished in the shtetls of Eastern Europe. And to illustrate this, I always show them a painting of a Jewish shtetl wedding from around 1900. It looks like a scene from Fiddler on the Roof. It is a colorful folk depiction of a community dancing and singing. And the chuppah is held by smiling villagers. There's even an actual fiddler in the foreground. The artist is clearly trying to convey the communal happiness of the moment. But in truth, every single person in this painting was undoubtedly dirt poor and had experienced terrible violence and discrimination. So why do they dance and sing and drink? Well, the drinking is understandable, actually, but the intense joy depicted in the shtetl, simcha, has nothing to do with the quality of the food or the wine. It has to do with the quality of shared happiness of the moment. This simcha takes place against the backdrop of great hardship, and as a result, life and its good moments are not taken for granted. Joy is felt more keenly and more intensely when people are just happy to be alive. Just happy to be alive. That's what we're supposed to feel today. So we lean into our mortality, a subject that for the most part we don't like to look at straight on. But here, together, bolstered by community, we can plead with God for another year of life. And in this collective pleading, we can also feel deep joy as we feel our hearts beating in our chests. We are alive. Does anyone have that app called We Croak? Does anyone have it? A colleague showed it to me last year. It's based on a Buddhist tradition from Bhutan, which teaches that contemplating your death 5 times a day brings a person happiness. So 5 times a day, the app pops up with the same message. You're going to die. Click here for a quote. I know, but it's not as annoying as the Apple Watch, which tells you to like breathe and slow your heart rate, which really offends me because I work with teenagers, and so that clearly they don't know what I'm dealing with, and so I get offended by that judgy app. But this is not a judgy app. Everyone gets the same message because we're all in the same boat. We all have smartphones. No, I'm just kidding. We're all in the same boat because in truth, we are all humans and we're all going to die. The idea is that if we lived our entire lives with this awareness, then perhaps all of our annoyances about life that would not have the power to take us down as they do. This is all about perspective, and perspective does get easier with age and experience. When I'm talking to a kid who's very upset, I listen, I affirm, but I try to provide perspective. You will have other boyfriends. You will get better grades. You won't always feel this way. You know the drill. When we mandate a simcha as Judaism does, we are getting a giant dose of perspective. Stop what you are doing and celebrate this moment and the fact that you are alive to live it. And so we say the Shechianu at these simchas, the first day of a holiday or a wedding or a bris. Blessed are you, O God, ruler of the universe, who gave us life, who sustained us, and who brought us to this moment. In the Torah, the word simcha appears only once in the books of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers. But in Deuteronomy, the word simcha is used no fewer than 12 times. Deuteronomy is Moses speaking to the generation about to enter the promised land, and he is retelling the entire story of the people of Israel. It's not an easy story. It's marked by suffering and rebellion and dissent, so it's puzzling that the word simcha is used 3 times. The reason is that Moses isn't using simcha in retelling the story of the past. The word simcha is what he is telling the Israelites to do in the future, after they enter the land. He is telling this new generation that when they enter Israel, there will be times when they must gather with their households and share their joy. In effect, he is saying, you know what your parents suffered. You've heard about their slavery in Egypt. You yourselves know what it is to wander in the wilderness without a home or shelter or security. You may think that those were the greatest challenges, but you are wrong. You are about to face a harder trial, the real test, is security and contentment. The real test is security and contentment, because when we are comfortable, we start worrying about the type of wine we're going to have at the party, and we forget to thank our Creator for allowing us to be at the party. And I'm wondering if I should switch microphones. Should I switch? Should I switch? No, I should keep going. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. When we face hardship, we tend to pray and plead with God and become very observant, but not so much when things are easy. Life is a gift, and this is hard to remember when life is easy. And this is the great paradox of faith. It's easy to speak to God in tears. It's harder to serve God in joy. And so Moses makes it imminently clear that joy should be the focus of our collective life in the land of Israel. It must be, because as soon as things are easy, we have to work harder to remind ourselves that life is a gift. I am certain that there were many humble weddings in the shtetls of Eastern Europe that were far more joyous than many of the ones that I've officiated or you've been to. It's remarkable how easily we lose perspective, turning the happiest of occasions into moments of pain. Many years ago, I went to go do a wedding for a dear friend on the top of Vale Mountain. Beautiful venue. What could there to be unhappy about? But when I arrived, the mother of the bride was in a full-on meltdown. She was yelling at the caterer and yelling at her daughter, and just, it was terrible. The problem was that the wedding was supposed to happen outside on this porch, and right next door was another restaurant where a trucking convention had gathered, and they were blasting music. It was like, life is a highway. And clearly they weren't going to be able to hear the wedding. So I walked over to the DJ and I climbed up the little steps in my little outfit ready for this wedding, and he looked me up and down, and I said, could you just give me like 20 minutes to get these people married, and then you can turn the music back on? And of course he obliged. And then I went back to the woman and I said, you're missing this. Please stop. And she did. She finally did. The most joyous moment of your child's life, of your family's life, and you will miss it if you don't calm down and put this into perspective. Now, judge her all you want, but I am certain all of us can think of a time when we were impatient and unkind and just plain miserable because we lost track of what was important. Yom Kippur is here to remind us that you are alive. You had yesterday, you have this day, and hopefully you will have tomorrow. But even if you don't, you have this day right here. And failing to recognize it as a gift is a failure to fulfill the mitzvah of rejoicing. Some of you sitting here tonight have already experienced this truth much more vividly. You have faced a diagnosis or experienced a loss that forced you to contemplate the fragility of human life in a terrifying and life-altering way. Suffering is, in fact, a great teacher. It forces us to distill our priorities and see what's important. But in case your life was without any speed bumps this year, our tradition compels every single one of us to confront our mortality once a year on Yom Kippur and reorient ourselves. In fact, our ancestors intentionally fashioned Yom Kippur as a dress rehearsal for our own deaths. This is why we deny ourselves food and drink, why we refrain from sexual relations, and why we recite the Vidui, which is the prayer we say on our deathbed as a confession of sins. On Yom Kippur, we actually chant a litany of the many ways we could die, who by water, who by fire, the list goes on. Traditional Jews even dress in a white kittel, which is a burial shroud for Yom Kippur services. But the purpose of all of this is to come out of the holiday with a feeling of intense joy after facing the undeniable reality that we are all dying. Facing death can inspire us to be less trivial and sometimes even more joyful. The Hasidic tradition teaches that the cultivation of simcha should be the primary aim of a religious Jew. The ancient psalmist instructs, I don't know what to do.
Let's get this honor.
Okay. There we go. Okay, there we go. Hasidic tradition That's much better. Hasidic tradition teaches that the cultivation of simcha should be the primary aim of a religious Jew. The psalmist instructs, Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha, serve God with joy. And being joyful is not an option in Judaism. It is the very foundation of a spiritual life, and scripture warns us that without joy, the worst things can happen. Deuteronomy lays out a list of horrific punishments and curses that will plague us on our journey if we do not serve God with joy and gladness of heart. It does feel like we're living through a biblical period of punishment right now. The world is literally heaving with pain of war, of corrupt governments, of natural disasters. I will be honest with you. I wake up in the middle of the night in absolute terror about what is happening in Israel, in Lebanon, in Gaza. I feel utterly helpless. And yet, if I return to tradition, I'm told that my responsibility is to treasure life and celebrate with joy when there is cause for joy. And there is always a cause for joy. Babies are born, people fall in love, children learn to walk and talk. There is still music left inside of all of us waiting to be played. Judaism teaches us that despite the suffering, or perhaps because of it, we must respond with joy. Perhaps this is why the holiday right after Yom Kippur is Sukkot, a holiday known as the season of rejoicing. The proximity of the two holidays is intentional. After surviving the death rehearsal of Yom Kippur, we are instructed to drive the first nail into our sukkah and rejoice in the Thanksgiving holiday. Like the commandment to celebrate with bride and groom on Sukkot, Scripture actually commands us to be joyful. You might ask, how can Judaism command us to be joyful? The answer is, it's in the translation. The verse is, not in Sukkot you shall feel joy, but rather you shall rejoice. We're not commanded to feel. No one can command you to feel a certain way, but we are commanded to do. And oftentimes, our tradition asks us to perform actions that lead to joy, including eating and drinking with friends. It's not a foolproof method. I'm not saying that the cure for depression is religious observance, but I am saying that sometimes we have to do first, and the feelings will follow. I know that for many of us, embracing joy is not always easy. I don't want to minimize the effort it can take. The philosopher Kierkegaard actually said, it takes religious courage to rejoice. And I can tell you in my experience, this is true. As a rabbi, I've seen people struggle. I've seen depression and loss, and I have faced pain in my own life. This is hardly a call to cheer up, and I don't believe that's what our tradition expects. But we do need to seriously consider how our tradition puts joy at the very center of our path forward from what hurts us. When we are down, we would do well to simply follow the tradition, almost like learning a dance, step by step. My mother used to tell me when I was down to just get up, get dressed, and do the little things, because eventually that might engage the part of me that was not frightened or alone or depressed. We must at least try doing the things that can bring us joy, even if they're not making us feel the way they used to, because in the doing, there is a chance that the feelings might change. That's why we are commanded to celebrate on Sukkot or at a wedding, or even if you don't feel like it. Joy isn't just for you, it's also contagious. And it's a powerful communal experience, and yes, sometimes it takes courage to do it. But simcha is not just life-affirming, it's also life-sustaining. There is so much evidence of this. Elie Wiesel tells a story of the moment that he decided that he would take his own life in the concentration camp. He was determined to do it. He couldn't take it anymore. He had reached his breaking point. He was walking into the barracks for what he thought would be his last time, and he encountered a traditional Jew singing and praying joyfully. And when he asked the man what he was doing, he said, "The Germans have taken away everything, but they cannot take away my song." And this convinced Wiesel to keep trying to stay alive. Last year, around this time, I was on a trip with 200 students on October 7th. It was also Simchat Torah. So after We sat down and told the kids what had happened in Israel because they did not have their phones. We dismissed them to go prepare for a huge dance we were planning for the evening, but the mood was hardly festive. Still, one of my students said he would like to offer Devar Torah that night, and I agreed with some apprehension, but my anxiety was unfounded. As they all sat in a giant circle on the basketball court under the stars, I held the Torah and listened to him talk. You could have heard a pin drop as he first explained that Simchat Torah, which means rejoicing with the Torah, was first celebrated by the Jews during the Babylonian exile. Not exactly a happy time for the Jewish people because we had lost so much. But they created this holiday to will themselves into gratitude. And he continued, and I quote, and this is a 17-year-old, "We cannot let Hamas take away our song tonight. The terrorists chose Simchat Torah to attack because they were not just trying to take our lives, they were also trying to steal our joy. But how can we be happy? How can we possibly sing when Jewish mothers weep? How can we dance when families grieve? We should be happy here tonight because it is an act of faith. A people who can walk through the shadow of the valley of death and still rejoice are a people that cannot be defeated by any force or any fear. And if a tear should fall as we dance tonight, we shall wipe it away and continue to dance because we know that a people whose capacity for joy cannot be destroyed is an indestructible people. War cannot take away our song, our spirit, our joy." I proudly placed the Torah into his arms and I watched it disappear into the crowd of young people, and dancing that night was unlike anything I've ever witnessed. It was adamantly joyful. It was purposefully hopeful. And Rav Hanina's famous words never rang more true when he said, "I have learned much from my teachers, but I have learned even more from my students." Ivdu et Hashem basimcha, serve God in joy. May we too rejoice in being alive. May our rejoicing keep us alive as a people. And may you and your loved ones find reason every day to say, "Blessed are you, O God, ruler of the universe, who has given us life, who has sustained us, and who has allowed us to reach this season."
We continue on page 82. Would you all please rise for Vidui? Yeah.
Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, our God and God of all generations, may our prayers reach your presence, and when we turn to you, do not be indifferent. Adonai, we are arrogant and stubborn, claiming to be blameless and free of sin. In truth, we have stumbled and strayed, we have done wrong.
So I'm going to go off the reservation just a little bit, so bear with me, okay? So last year, I introduced to you, I've tried to introduce different ways of embracing different rituals in Jewish tradition, and one of the traditions you are probably familiar with is when we pound our chests, when we offer the Ashamnu prayer. And pounding your chest maybe isn't the best description of what we're supposed to be doing. And so last year, or a year and a half ago, I was watching that great TV show, The Bear. And if you haven't seen it, you should watch it. Not the fourth season, I think it's not so good, but the first three are pretty good. So, and the lead character is a chef, and he just in the midst of an argument in the kitchen, he described how at his sort of haute couture elite kitchen, they would take their fist when they were in a lot of stress with each other. They would take their fist and they would rub it over their heart as a way of saying, "I'm sorry." And it was kind of in the midst of the busyness of getting the meal out, like, "I'm sorry, we're stressing each other out. I'm angry or you're angry, but we don't have time to discuss it. So let's just do this," right? So I introduced this as a way maybe of encouraging you to consider this. But I have another one that I want to introduce to you tonight. So that one came from TV. This one came from a Jewish children's musician and teacher. And that is a woman named Eliana Light. And she has this song. So I'm going to ask you to just repeat after me, okay? So you're going to take your fist and just gently tap it. And repeat after me. Tap, tap, tap your heart together. Tap, tap, tap your heart. Tap, tap, tap your heart. Tap, tap, tap your heart. It's Yom Kippur and it's time to restart. So try that. Tap, tap, tap your heart. It's Yom Kippur and it's time to restart. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ah, yeah, yeah, ah, yeah. You repeat after me. Ashamnu,
Ashamnu,
Bagadnu,
Bagadnu,
Gazalnu,
Gazalnu,
Dibarnu Dofi,
Dibarnu Dofi,
Hevinu,
Hevinu,
Vehirshanu,
Vehirshanu,
Zadnu,
Zadnu,
Hamasnu,
Hamasnu,
Tafalnu Shaker.
Tafalnu Shaker,
Ay, 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 ay. Yatsnura,
Yatsnura,
Kizavnu,
Kizavnu,
Latnu,
Latsnu,
Maradnu,
Maradnu,
Niatsnu,
Niatsu,
Sararnu,
Sararnu,
Avinu,
Avinu,
Pashanu,
Pashanu,
Sararnu,
Sararnu,
Kishinu Orev.
Kishinu Ore,
Ay, 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 ay. Rashanu,
Rashanu,
Shichatnu,
Shichatnu,
Tiavnu,
Tiavnu,
Tainu,
Tainu,
Titanu.
Titanu,
Ay, 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 ay. Tap, tap, tap your heart. Tap, tap, tap your heart. Tap, tap, tap your heart. It's Yom Kippur and it's time to restart. Of these wrongs we are guilty, we read together. We betray, we steal, we scorn, we act perversely, we are cruel, we scheme, we are violent, we slander, we devise evil, we lie, we ridicule, we disobey, we abuse, we defy, we corrupt, we commit crimes, we are hostile, we are stubborn, we are immoral, we kill, we spoil, we go astray, we lead others astray.
Our turning away from your mitzvot and laws of goodness is a hollow pursuit. You are just concerning all that happens in our lives. Your way is the way of truth, while ours leads to error. What can we say to you whose existence is beyond time and space? What words of ours can reach your realm, beyond the clouds, beyond heaven itself? Every hidden mystery, every revelation, surely you know them all. We continue on page 86.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, bezadon b'bishkaga, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha, b'dibur peh. The ways we have wronged you deliberately and by mistake, and harm we have caused in your world through the words of our mouths.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha be'imutz chalev, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'tifshut peh. the ways we have wronged you by hardening our hearts, and the harm we have caused in your world by careless speech.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בחשש ובכזב, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך ברכילות. The ways we have wronged you through lies and deceit,
and harm we have caused in your world through gossip and rumor. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'filut, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'zilzul chorim umorim. The ways we have wronged you by judging others unfairly, and harm we have caused in your world through disrespect to parents and teachers.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בווידוי פה, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בהונאת רע. The ways we have wronged you through insincere apologies,
and the harm we have caused
in your world by mistreating a friend or neighbor.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha bechozek yad, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'masa uvmatan. The ways we have wronged you through violence and abuse, and harm we have caused in your world through dishonesty in business.
Ve'al kulam elo selichot, selach lanu mechal lanu kapel lanu. Ve'al kulam elo selichot, selach lanu mechal lanu, selach lanu mechal lanu kapel lanu.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בגלוי ובסתר, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בפריקת עול.
The ways we have wronged you openly and secretly, and the harm we have caused in your world by losing self-control. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'gilui arayot, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'machal uvmishteh. The ways we have wronged you through sexual immorality, and harm we have caused in your world through consumption of food and drink.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך ביצר הרע, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בנשך ובמרבית. The ways we have wronged you by giving into our hostile impulses, harm we have caused in your world through greed and exploitation. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בלצון, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בנטיית גרון.
The ways we have wronged you through cynicism and scorn, and the harm we have caused in your world through arrogant behavior. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'shinat chinam, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'tumat sifatayim. The ways we have wronged you without cause, and the harm we have caused in your world through offense of speech.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בלשון הרע, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בצרות עין.
The ways we have wronged you with slanderous tongue, and the harm we have caused through selfish, petty spirit.
Ve'al kulam elo selichot, selach lanu mechal lanu kapel lanu. Ve'al kulam elo selichot, selach lanu mechal lanu, selach lanu mechal lanu kapel lanu.
Turn back to page 89.
Failures of integrity. We wrong you when we wrong ourselves. For our failures of integrity, Adonai, we seek forgiveness. For passing judgment without knowledge of the facts, and for distorting facts to suit our purposes. For succumbing in silence to social pressure, and for acquiescing in beliefs we find offensive. For using others' bad behavior to excuse our own, and for blaming others for our mistakes and poor decisions. For pretending to emotions we do not feel, and for appearing to be other than what we are, for condemning in our children the faults we tolerate in ourselves, and for tolerating in ourselves the faults we condemn in our parents.
Thank you.
Failures of justice. We dishonor you when we dishonor our society. For our failures of justice, Adonai, we seek forgiveness. For being indifferent to deprivation and hunger while accepting a culture of self-indulgence and greed. For abuse of power in boardrooms, courtrooms, and classrooms, and for accepting the neglect of children and elders, the ill and the weak. For permitting social inequalities to prevail, and for lacking the vision to transcend our selfishness, for glorifying violence and turning hastily to war, and for allowing history to repeat itself, for behaviors that risk the future of our planet, and for wreaking havoc on our own true inheritance, God's creation.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בשנאת חינם. ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בטומאת שפתיים.
The ways we have wronged you by hating without cause, and harm we have caused in your world through offensive speech. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'lishon hara, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'zarut ayin. The ways we have wronged you with slanderous tongue, and harm we have caused in your world through selfish or petty spirit.
For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement.
We sin against you when we hurt one another. For our failure of love, Adonai, we seek forgiveness. For exploiting another for our own pleasure, and for the wounds we cause through betrayal and deception. For withholding affection from those we claim to love, and for using love to control our spouses and partners, our children and parents. For abandoning friends and siblings whose love has sustained us, and for neglecting those who love us when they need us most. For harboring in our relationships mistrust, boredom, and disloyalty, and for rejecting our partner's efforts at repair and renewal, for possessiveness, jealousy, and avarice, and for lashing out in anger at those who are closest to us.
Who among us is blameless? Who shall say, I have not erred, I have not wronged or sinned? We abuse, we brutalize, we covet, we deceive. We enslave, we feud, we gossip, we humiliate, we injure, we judge unfairly, we kill, we lie. We manipulate, we neglect, we ostracize, we plagiarize, we quarrel. We rage, we shame, we turn away. We undermine, we vilify, we waste, we exploit the earth. We yearn too much for yesterday and too easily forget Zion. Our sins are an alphabet of woe. Help us, Holy One, to follow your ways of integrity, justice, and love. Teach us to seek forgiveness with humility and an open heart. Please be seated. We turn to page 93 for acts of healing and repair. God, our Creator and Guide, let us speak now of the healing acts by which we bring you into the world, the acts of repair that make you a living presence in our lives. Al hatikun shetikanu lefanecha.
For the act of healing we have done openly or anonymously, and for the act of repair we have done without personal gain. Al hatikun shetikanu lefanecha.
For the act of healing we have done by seeking forgiveness, and for the act of repair we have done by forgiving ourselves. Al hatikun shetikanu lefanecha.
For the act of healing we have done through righteous giving, and for the act of repair we have done by opening our hearts. Al hatikun shetikanu lefanecha.
For the act of healing we have done by comforting the mourner and visiting the sick, and for the act of repair we have done by pursuing justice and human rights, fairness and civility. Al hatikun shetikanu lefanecha.
For the act of healing we have done by making peace between one person and another, and for the act of repair we have done by protecting nature and all its creatures. Al hatikun shetikanu lefanecha.
For the act of healing we have done by teaching our children the ways of peace, and for the act of repair we have done by teaching our children the ways of Torah. Al hatikun shetikanu lefanecha.
For the act of healing we have done by honoring elders and loving the stranger, and for the act of repair we have done in response to your commandment, choose life and blessing. Va'al kulam. And all these bring nearer the day when you shall be one, and your name shall be one.
Al kulam
Elos elichot, selach lanu mechalanu, kaper lanu. Ve'al kulam elos elichot, selach lanu mechalanu, selach lanu mechalanu, kaper lanu.
Shma Koleinu can be found on page 98.
Shema Koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Hu sverachem aleinu, aleinu. V'kabel berachamim, berachamim, uvratzon, et tefillatenu. Hashkivenu Adonai elecha, hashivenu elecha v'nashuva, chadesh yameinu, yameinu kekedem. תעזבנו. שמע קולנו, אדוני אלוהינו, חוס ורחם עלינו, עלינו, וקבל ברחמים, ברחמים וברצון את
Please rise, turn to page 100 for El Rachum. God of forgiveness, we come before you in need of compassion. At Sinai, you spoke words that guide our lives to this day, but our ancestors lost faith in you, lost hope in their Redeemer. With one voice, they had promised, "We will do and obey," and yet stiff-necked, they broke their word, adoring an idol of gold. How wondrous your compassion in the face of their rebellion, your forgiveness in that moment of human weakness and doubt. We too have broken promises to you. We too worship the work of our own hands. We too make of gold a god, and we too forsake your word. At Sinai, you revealed 13 attributes of mercy, these aspects of your nature, your very essence, we now recall.
Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Alpayim v'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed la'alafim, Noseh Avon v'Fesha v'Chata'a v'Nakeh.
Page 109.
When men were children, they thought of God as a father. When men were slaves, they thought of God as a master. When men were subjects, they thought of God as a king. But I am a woman, not a slave, not a subject, not a child who longs for God as father or mother. I might imagine God as teacher or friend. But those images like king, master, father, or mother are too small for me now. God is the force of motion and light in the universe. God is the strength of life on our planet. God is the power moving us to do good. God is the source of love springing up in us. God is far beyond what we can comprehend. Please turn to page 116 as we open the ark for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gdula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים קדוש ברוך הוא. You may be seated. שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגבי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת
et malkeinu efesulato, kakatuv betorato, viadata hayom v'hashfote. Elecha vecha, ki Adonai hu Elohim, b'shamayim imal, v'aretz mitachat ein od. 118. V'nemar v'chai Adonai, lemelech al kol haaretz, Bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. Page 121. Preparing for the prayer of memory. This holy night concludes with memory. Our last thoughts always are of those we have lost. We miss them especially tonight, yearning for their presence at our side. The service we have shared once was theirs. They spoke and sang the ancient words. They prayed, repented, and yearned for better lives as we have done. Flawed in their deeds, imperfect in their faith, they still drew strength from their tradition as we seek fortitude in ours. What was good and beautiful in their lives once gave us joy and now inspires us to reach higher. The knowledge that they loved us deeply brings comfort to our hearts. So we light candles of remembrance and gratitude, and we speak this timeless truth. Zichronam livracha, their memory is a blessing now and forever. We pray that their goodness will live in our lives, planting seeds of kindness and hope for generations to come. Our thoughts turn to loved ones whom death has taken from us in recent days and those who died at this season in years past. Our hearts open as well to the wider circles of loss in our community and wherever grief touches the human family. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be a blessing in this new year and always.
As we prepare to say Kaddish, I'd like to offer this poem. Eldon Solovey has become a poet of at least this generation of rabbis. He's written now 4 books of poetry, liturgical poems, and he had just about finished his most recent book of poetry, was about to go to print on October 6th, and learned about everything that happened on October 7th, and so then added a few more poems. Tonight seemed the most appropriate time to share this piece before we offer Kaddish on this Kol Nidre Eve. These I remember, the young and the old, the children, the mothers, the babies, the fathers, and I do not look away, the brutalized, the maimed, the assaulted, the raped, burnt alive, terrorized and tortured, killed and kidnapped, and I do not look away. Al ela ani vochia, for these I weep. In every age, in our homes, in our villages, in the fields, on the streets, in our cities and our towns, death and terror stalk. My eyes flow like streams of water. For Re'im and Be'eri, for Pittsburgh and Toulouse, for Kfar Aza and Netiv HaSarav and Nachal Oz, for Mumbai and Colleyville, for Ofakim, Nir Oz, Nirim and Sderot, for Paris and Poway, for Alumim, Zikim, Saiduk and Kisufim, for Hall and Overland Park, for Nir Yitzhak, Cholit, and Sufa. For every community in every generation, these I remember. But how can I remember what was stolen? The loves lost, the dreams lost. Scientists, poets, artists, visionaries, leaders, learners, teachers of Torah. The generations lost the children of children and theirs never to be. Eila es korav nafshi alai eshpecha. These I remember. I pour out my soul from within me and I call out, Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun. God, God, compassionate and gracious, remember us. We continue on page 122. Please rise for Kaddish.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach chirotei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yamachon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'adalau v'zman kari v'imru. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei amaya, yitbarak v'yishtabach v'yitromar v'daman v'yitnaseh, v'yitchadar v'yitchalei v'yitchalal shmei d'kudisha b'richu. Leila uleila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran b'yama v'imru. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'imru, amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all among us who are bereaved, as we say together, amen.
Tiffany.
We turn to page 114.
Tiffany.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tiffany. Where's Tiffany? We have some announcements. We're in the flow. I forgot about you.
Good youngtov, everyone. I don't have the right words. Oh, yeah, sit. Give me a minute. No. It's been a very heavy week for myself, which I am assuming for many of you in this room as well. I have already cried this evening. The strings of the cello awoken my broken heart for many reasons. The songs that have been sung, the Hebrew words that have been chanted, the sermon that Rabbi Laura so just what she said to us, I think echoed a lot of what we were feeling. And for some, maybe we didn't realize that this was the most joyous holiday in our faith. But it makes sense. We all come into this space with the thought of almost like a rebirth, a thankful to be in this moment, praying that we stay in this moment, do better, that our family, friends continue to be in this New Year's book of life, and that we can just be better people and find the faith that we all love so much in this dark, dark time. And I hope for you all that you take the time in this space through the next 20-ish hours or so, find what you need. It's okay to cry. It's okay to smile. It's okay to give your neighbor a hug. It's a little bit chilly in here, so bring a jacket tomorrow. It's okay just to breathe, because we all need this time. So I'm asking you, in the next day, give yourself that time to come in and just be. And I promise you that everyone who is sitting behind me will give you that, as long as you are willing to take that step as well. So tomorrow, join us all at 9 a.m. for the family service. The morning service starts at 10 a.m. The morning service will end around 12:30 or so. So as you arrive, I kindly ask if y'all come and sit kind of closer up front. No one will bite up here. It's a great view. I mean, who doesn't want to be in the front row? Rabbi Scott will not call on y'all for any questions to be answered. Fill in, because we are anticipating a fuller house than we had this evening, and we'd like it to make it easy for people to come in, as we know that the stairs are a little tricky here in the Kaplan Theater. After the morning service, we'll go right into Teshiva workshops, and you are still welcome to join us for one of those. And then around 2:30, Rabbi Laura and Rabbi Scott will have some fun Hebrew texts to talk about. And then we will move into our healing service at 3:30. Followed by a really unique and special Yizkor service at 4:30, then into Ne'ilah, and we'll close all together with Havdalah in a very unique CSK way. And if you've RSVP'd to join us for break fast, it will happen tomorrow at 6:15. So I kindly ask that you just come tomorrow and stay and enjoy and take what you need out of this Yom Kippur. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, one last thing. I'm sorry. There are photos as you leave on your right between two tables. These are extra photos that we had at our 10th year anniversary. If one speaks to you, if you're in one of them and you would like to have one, there are gifts to you. So please take a moment to look them over and take them home if you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. And we would very much encourage you to take these photos so they don't have to live in my garage any longer. I want to make one more plug before we conclude this evening. I know, sometimes you have sort of what I call Reform Orthodox folks, and sometimes you have Orthodox Reform folks, and they are strict in how they do not observe. And some of you may think, oh, I do Friday, I do the evening, I do the morning, but no, I don't do the afternoon. I am here to make the sale now. It will be worth your while. All it's going to cost is some time. But what are you going to do? Watch a football game? Don't answer that question. Tomorrow, as Tiffany mentioned, we'll have the morning service. Then we will have our Teshuvah workshops. These are 5 really excellent ways of expanding and broadening and deepening the ideas of the High Holy Days. At 2:30, Rabbi Laura and I will lead you through an exploration of text from the book of Jonah, which will give you really a highlighted way of imagining how and why Jonah plays a role in the Yom Kippur and how he still speaks to us today. At 3:30, we'll have our healing service, which you've experienced before. And then at 4:30, Rabbi Laura and I have written a special Yizkor service. It is called Eila Ezkorah Yizkor, which means these I remember. And instead of being a Yizkor service that's a traditional, personal sorrow and loss, that will be covered as well, it'll be a historical view of the losses of the Jewish people through the centuries. And I think it is a really appropriate and timely experience for us today. Immediately following at 5:30, of course, is Nila, and then Havdalah and breakfast. So if you are planning on doing something else tomorrow, don't. And I know where you live. So we are going to conclude tonight with Avinu Malkeinu, page 114. Would you all please, I'm sorry, not 114. Yes, 114. Yes, sorry. Page 114, would you all please rise?
Avinu Malkeinu, Shma Koleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamal aleinu.
Ivdu et Adonai b'simcha, bo lefanav bir nana. Serve Adonai, serve each other, serve the world with joy. Bring joy into the world and rejoice. Thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Good.